You'll regret choosing me as your opponent. It's easy to get heat stroke in the middle of summer. In the name of summer, I won't lose. This is your last summer. The tide's got a summer surprise! Time for it? Let's dance! Seashells on the shore. Keep it up! Okay, let's run! Stay on offense! It won't hurt. I'll make it quick. Feel the soothing. Don't miss the brightest moment. You'll regret choosing me as your opponent. I offer you the dazzling star of a summer night. Looks like you're all. I got this, Alice. It won't hurt. I'll make it quick. Time to chase summer once more. Remember the set. Here's a wave just for you. The tide will wash it all away. The season. Guess what my umbrella can turn into? You'll regret choosing me as your opponent. Move with the blade. Your hand has been exposed. Keep it up. At the beach, Alice Timefield is unstoppable. Feel the sea breeze. Wave goodbye to summer. A dance. It won't hurt. I'll make it quick. You can't run ahead.
Is that all?
Try for you! Here we go! Don't miss the brightest moment.
I did warn you.
What? I'll take down instead.
Princess, how rude of you. Be gone.
Wave goodbye to summer. Here's a wave just for you. The raging tide will bury the past. Watch this! Medium Einstein! Try this!
Thank you to the whirlpool.
Expansion time! Time to chase summer once more. This baddie doesn't look all that cool.
But the wind broke into more.
Wow, you're just gonna dump the bad guys on me like that? Watch out! Let's go! Don't miss the brightest moment. This is your last summer. The frigid wind is coming. Are you ready? Suffocating now. Wave goodbye to summer. Wave goodbye to summer. The tide will wash it all away. Rotate. Don't miss the brightest moment. Care for a game on the beach? Too late to be begging now. Already, I won't hold back. Pretty cool, huh? Watch this. Meteor morning star. Time to chase summer once more. The raging tide will bury the past. Let's ride the Exploding map! It's dancing time! Wave goodbye to summer. Here's a wave just for you. Got a summer surprise! Here to sign for it? Exploding map! Let's go! Rising flood, bouncy whirlwind! Lose yourself in the world of music! The reach won't hit you. Let's ride the wave! On you go! Don't miss the brightest moment. This is your last summer.